Okay, so on this particular screencast, I want to show you how to make a proper graph using Excel. What I've got here is a bunch of data for 14, 15, 16, and 17-year-old students and the height in centimeters of 5 subjects from each group. So I'm going to go ahead and plot this. Now, the first thing you want to know is you do not want to plot the raw data. You never want to plot the raw data. So you want to plot the averages, okay? And to do this, you can simply come into the cell below the data. And there's a number of ways you could do this. I just tend to put equal the average. And you got to tell it what you want the average of. And so inside the bracket, you simply highlight the data. And another bracket will finish it off. So there's my average right there, okay? Now you can do the same thing for all of these, or you can do a quick shortcut and highlight the average cell that you have, and then when you hover over this little square in the bottom, you see that your cursor changes to a black square. You just click and drag that across, and you've got the averages for all of them. Okay, so that's what you want to plot. So I want to plot age and average height of the group. Now, the question sometimes is next, what kind of graph do we want? Because this data which is going to be on the x-axis, our independent variable, because it's continuous, and generally speaking that means numerical, you want to use an XY scatter plot. You never, and for reasons I can't even begin to explain, you don't want to use a line graph in Excel or in Google Sheets. It's just not the graph that you think it is. So you want to do a scatter plot. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight this data, and then holding down the command key, also highlight this data. So that's the only stuff I'm going to plot. So under charts, again, this is not what you want to do. You don't want to do a column graph in this case because it's continuous data. So you want to go with a scatter plot. Now, generally speaking, what I will do is do one without any sort of a line. You don't want to connect the dots like this, and you want to be able to control the trend line later. So I'm going to show you how to do that later. But we're going to start there. Now, is that the graph you want? Oh my goodness, no. That just looks awful. So you want to do some adjusting. The first thing I'm going to adjust here is the X and Y scales, okay? Because all my data is kind of jammed up in here, which isn't really all that great. So I'm going to get rid of part of the X axis. I'm going to get rid of this area down here, okay? So I go here, and I'm on the horizontal X axis, and I want to put the minimum probably around, oh, I don't know, maybe 13 or so. I'll click that in there. And I also want to get rid of some of the space down here. So I'm going to do the same thing on the y-axis, and we'll probably do it about, oh, I don't know, around 120. Give yourself a little bit of room there. Okay, now we're starting to see a graph that we like. So what we need to do next is put a trend line on the graph. Okay. And the way you can do that is simply to highlight this, highlight one of the, or right click on one of the dots and add trend line. Now, you've got a lot of different options for the trend line. In this case, a linear one looks pretty darn good, okay? But there are going to be times when you want curved ones, and sometimes it'll be exponential. Sometimes, rarely it's logarithmic, okay? But one of my favorite ones to get a curve you like is the polynomial. And you can change the order on the polynomial, and by doing so, you can see how the number starts to change. Now, this one's not changing too much, but you will see differences sometime. And you might actually say, you know what, I don't mind that. I don't mind that trend line. But in this case, I'm happy with a linear one. Okay, so I'm going to do that. Now, the other thing that you need to make sure that you do is put a proper title and axis labels and units on it. Okay, The quickest way to do that, in my opinion, is to come up to these chart quick layouts and click that, and now you have access for this. Now, what you do not want to do in a chart title is you don't want to put height, whoops, spelled that wrong, sorry, height versus age. Okay, that is just a horrible title. Okay, never use the word versus in there. What you want is some sort of sentence telling you what you're looking at in the graph. So here you're looking at the average heights of students of different ages. Spelled that wrong again, good grief. There we go. Okay. That tells me what I'm looking at. I'm looking at the average heights of students of different ages. So down here, we need to put our age. Oops. So we're going to put age, and you have to put the units. What are we talking? Months, days, what? We're talking about years. And up here, we're talking about height in centimeters. Okay. Now, for some reason, I lost my trend line when I clicked on that quick chart layout, so I'll just put another one in there. And that is a decent graph. Okay. You can choose to put the series. If you've got more than one line on here, you can choose to put a series labels in there. Sometimes the question comes, what do we do for when do we use column graphs? Column graphs are used when you have an x-axis or an independent variable that's not numerical or is what we call discontinuous. So for an example, if we had measured the circumferences of apples, oranges, and peaches, we'd plot that data, but because there's nothing in between an apple and an orange, okay, it's a discrete category, so you will actually end up having a graph with a bar showing apples, a bar showing oranges, and a bar showing peaches without a trend line in between, because a trend line shows you what's going on in between the actual x-axis values, but there's nothing in between apples and oranges, so you don't do that. So I hope that helps you with this. I'm going to put another video together showing how to use standard deviation and why that's important, and that'll be on the next video.